What's up, everybody? My name's Bryce Koon here on the Go 24/7 YouTube channel, the Facebook page, and on Twitter as well. And the big breaking news, LSU and Brad Davis are at it once again. Carius Curne, the four-star interior, outside, wherever you want to put him. He plays a lot of tackle. The top-ranked player in the state of Arkansas, offensive lineman, four-star, is now an LSU Tiger. And we're going to quickly take a look at who he is, take a look at some of the tape, and then talk about Brad Davis in this 2025 class. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you share it with your friends. If you're on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button as we're getting ready to talk a little LSU football here on a fantastic Thursday, depending on where you are, Thursday morning. Maybe it's it's past noon, actually, over on the Eastern time zone. So let's kind of talk about this. Who is Carius Curne? Well, the Marion High School native, the Marion, Arkansas commit. Now, you look at what he is, 6'4", 301. We have him over at 24/7 Sports, a four-star, a top 200 player in the country per just 24/7 Sports. And when you kind of add in the 24/7 Sports composite ranking, he's number 109 in the country, the number one player in the state of Arkansas, and a top 12 tackle in the country. And look, Brad Davis continues to do fantastic work as well. I wanted to shout out 24/7 Sports national recruiting analyst Hudson Standish, who had this to say after watching Curne last November. Standish says that Curne is a stout lineman with recruiting interest on both sides of the football. You're going to see that when we look at the tape. He burst onto the scene during the college season between his sophomore and junior years. He displays impressive movement ability at offensive tackle, owns valuable two-way snaps on both lines of scrimmage, and then he has adequate length to remain outside or move to the guard role. We know Brad Davis loves interchangeable pieces along that offensive front. His physical tools also translate to defense, which LSU, funny enough, some people say, hey, can he go play defensive line? Including varying schemes. He has multiple ability thanks to track and field. He throws. And then through his junior campaign this past season, they felt like his best spot long-term was somewhere on the offensive line while acknowledging the potential to play either way. He projected as a high major line of scrimmage presence who could develop into an NFL draft candidate. You just kind of look at what this young man's been able to do. Been very, very impressed with Curne's tape. I like what Brad Davis does in terms of just bringing in interchangeable pieces along what they want to do offensively along the line of scrimmage. I mean, you can never have enough. We remember last year, late into the recruiting cycle when LSU decided they wanted to kind of go out and maybe get Cohen Eccles and add him to the fold. And you can never have enough in building depth along a group that's going to lose a lot of veteran talent after the 2024 season. Obviously, we know Will Campbell and Emory Jones with their potential to be day one and day two picks, respectively. But the interior guys as well. You're going to lose Garrett Dellinger. You're going to lose Miles Frazier. You're going to lose a couple of guys that have a lot of experience and can play different positions. So Carius Curne getting on board and kind of in the fold here for LSU is a massive, massive pickup for Brad Davis. Let's also kind of talk about, as Glenn West, our very own Glenn West, spoke with Carius Curne, coming out of the visit this past weekend. He said it went really, really well. The NFL and player development there stood out. How many guys they have put in the league. Little feather in the cap there of Brad Davis. Their plan for me is really detailed, and it was really impressive to see what all goes into being a player at LSU and how they develop them with academics and nutrition. Curne's now going to be on the line, Lucas, that helps protect the number one quarterback in the country in Bryce Underwood. It's a class that's kind of been, placed an emphasis on building out depth. You see, obviously, like Curne has been to Baton Rouge for a visit. We've also seen Solomon Thomas, the Florida State commit, Micah DeBose, and Mario Nash. Neither of those guys are in the fold yet, but we'll see how LSU continues to kind of pursue those guys. I'm excited when you look at what this offensive line grouping looks like, and we're going to talk about some of those names here in just a second. But without further ado, let's rock and roll, and let's look at some of the tape right here. Carius Curne, and we look at the tape. Now, listen, you're going to watch some of this, and you see the arrow right there of what this guy can do defensively, but the aggressiveness that he brings out on the offensive side of the football as well. As we take a look and you just watch interior pass rush, destroys that right guard and gets to the quarterback. Now, here's offensive line. Play and tackle, the kick out. I like the way that he finishes through these blocks and is able to not just clear a lane for a running back or a receiver or whatever the play calls for, but he's aggressive in that as well. We take a look, continuing to wash down blockers. Poor number 23 right there didn't really have a chance in what he wanted to do. And you continue to watch him along that offensive line. It's imperative that you bring that into the field of play when you want to watch this. But Kern's ability to move at his size is something that Brad Davis and this staff are really, really excited about. He can get to the second level with ease. He is able to, push through the initial contact, the initial blocking of that front seven. And I think it's something that this staff is excited to kind of mold as, look, he's already over 300 pounds. He's a guy, though, that you can see he carries 300 plus very, very well. I like this clip right here. You see him get it back in pass set there. Guy wants to run past the quarterback. We're going to drive him all the way back. So that's kind of a look at the tape of what Carius Curne brings to the table. I love what this young man is. I love the size. I like the way he carries that weight. When it's going to be talking about 6'4", 301. Folks, when you go look at the NFL draft and you start to kind of look at some of the players that heard their names called, especially the tackle position, kind of gone are the days of, I'll use this term, the big hog mollies, the big guys that are, they got the gut. They're kind of, maybe a little overweight. They're trying to add weight any ways necessary. These tackles now, especially in the SEC, massive upper body, a long trunk, the ability to have, quick feet and great footwork. Curne fits that mold. And he's a guy that can get out in space at the tackle position. And when you're Brad Davis, when you're Joe Sloan, Cortez Hankton, you're orchestrating this offense, and even Frank Wilson, who's obviously going to be over the run game in some capacity, when you have that to your disposal, I think that just lights your eyes up as an offensive play caller when you see a guy who's over 300 pounds that can move out in space. It's going to open up things for Bryce Underwood, Colin Hurley, or any of the guys that might be, stepping into the quarterback position. Ricky Collins in that as well, and AJ Swan too, if Garrett Nussmeier doesn't come back for 2025. But this is a really big spot for LSU to go and get a kid. We kind of go through what Curne did. He was committed to Arkansas, he was committed to Arkansas back in March. He takes a visit to LSU and decommits. Now, I put my crystal ball in right there. I felt like Curne had seen enough. Now, they get Curne back on campus over there in Fayetteville for an OV. Then this past weekend, not really publicized as much, but Curne makes his trip to Baton Rouge. And you kind of saw what he told our very own Glenn West, senior writer over at Go 24/7, his thoughts on what they were able to bring to the table. I really like the way that these guys were able to kind of turn and say, hey, here's the plan. Here's the specific plan that we want for you to not just get here, not just of why we like you, but to carry you throughout your career here in Baton Rouge. And that's what Brad Davis and them were able to do. And it brings us to our last and final point here on today's little quick live episode. Brad Davis is elite. I mean, his ability to recruit and stack classes at the offensive line position is a reason why I think that Brian Kelly and LSU are going to be successful for many years to come. Does that mean championships? Well, I firmly believe that championships are built from the line of scrimmages out. You have to have that to be a championship caliber team. LSU is well on their way doing that on the offensive side of the football, and Brad Davis just continues to show why he's so good at that. Curne is announcing his commitment to Brad Davis and company. We talked about the nation's number 11th ranked offensive tackle, the number 100 overall player per 21 Sports Composite. But this is an offensive line haul that he's adding to that's already a solid grouping. We've seen, in-state prospect Devin Harper, Brett Bordelon are two in-state guys that they really, really wanted to be a part of this and kind of continue to mold what this class wants to look like. And then Tyler Miller out of Laurel, Mississippi, the number 12 offensive tackle. So you've got number 11 and you've got number 12. Now, we could discuss, is there more on the horizon? Micah DeBose is one of those guys that I like that has flirted with the opportunity to play for LSU. Solomon Thomas is another guy committed to Florida State. What does he end up doing? I've talked with Thomas several times, and the loyalty is there in Tallahassee, but he also recognizes the value that Brad Davis brings to the table in terms of recruiting at the offensive line position. And then Tyler Miller, 24/7 Sports' very own David Johnson over at the Ole Miss site, put in a crystal ball to him, I believe it was, yesterday afternoon, picking Miller to commit to the Rebels. So we'll kind of have to see how that kind of works out in the favor of where LSU is going to go in terms of where they can fill out the remaining of this roster. And you can check that out, obviously, of Go 24/7, the official visits, the latest breaking news, the latest news in general about where these guys are going to go for visits and where they're leaning in terms of commitment. But Brad Davis, an elite recruiter. I love the class that he put together last year, and I like where they're trending here in 2025 as well. We got to see what the results in 2024 bring, though, because it's a stacked offensive line and one that a lot of people think is the best in the country, not just the SEC. My name is Bryce Koon, Go 24/7. Make sure you check us out. I know you're watching over on the Facebook page. You're watching live on Twitter/X. And if you're on the YouTube channel, make sure you hit subscribe and you let us know down there as well. And hey, if you're listening to this in podcast form, sorry you couldn't watch the film, but that's a good reason for you to hit subscribe in that feed and then head over to our YouTube channel where you can catch all the latest news and notes. My name is Bryce Koon. Glenn West is also with us, and so is Sonny Ship over at Go 24/7. We'd love to have you on the boards discussing all things LSU Tigers.